and some of them are dressed in character. So, as you might know, or those of you who are new to joining us, we received a grant from the James S. McDonald Foundation, who's here in St. Louis. It's a 6-year grant where we are integrating postdoctoral fellows into K-12 public education settings in St. Louis. And so one of our key partners are working with our UMSL charter schools, so those schools that we sponsor, and really working with our partners to help address their needs. So we're going to learn about a couple of those projects. Again, it's a 6-year project. It started in 23, so we will end in 29, and there will be a total of 16 postdoctoral fellows who will participate in the project. Why are we doing it? So at the time when we received our funding, the McDonald Foundation was heavily funding science of learning projects. They're still doing that, but their mission has really evolved to really supporting workforce development in St. Louis. Why? Because we have economic disparities by zip code, and it's extremely evident. So we're trying to help reduce those disparities. And so our focus is on workforce development specific to education. So the fellows are engaged in lots of work. Most of them hold minimally a 2-year term for their position. And what are they really doing? They're working with their educational partners on implementing a cycle of inquiry. And so these cycle of inquiries, one of the fellows that I presented earlier this week in Baltimore, they're sort of doing sort of a 4 to 6 week cycle, and they're checking in and they're moving along with that cycle, or they're revisiting the cycle. So it's very iterative, working with their partners. And so the cycle of inquiry, as you can see, and this is what we're going to hear about, fellows will talk about launching a project, testing a project, collecting data, repeating if needed, thinking about results. So they're all in different places, so we're going to hear a couple stories from some different characters about what's going on. So our first one is Jamie Martin, who's our lovely Tin Man.
Thanks, Emily. Well, I don't need it. Just one slide. Okay. So at the site that I'm working with, they had some challenges implementing project-based learning. They had some resistance, as you do, to implementing any new instructional model. But they'd had a little bit of extra challenges that they thought might be normal, and they asked me, can you figure out why our teachers are so hesitant to do this, and can you help us out? So they really wanted these project-based learning, this project-based learning model of instruction because it's important to them that their students engage in real-world tasks. They really wanted to see them collaborating and problem solving, which are some of the outcomes associated with project-based learning. So to figure out what's going on with our teachers and what do they need, I engaged in some surveys and some team interviews. So I first sent out a survey to just kind of ask, about the comfort level and some rationales for, where they're at in their project-based learning implementation. And then I met with each team to kind of talk to them just informally and do a semi-structured interview about just sort of, again, where they're at in their implementation and what some of their motivations might be for that. And kind of what we learned were two things, was that in terms of rationale, they were a little bit hesitant because they weren't sure about the rationale for their school choosing project-based learning and why they were choosing that model to implement. The school's doing really well, and so there was just kind of this sentiment around the teachers, like, what we're doing is working, why should we change it? And then the other thing that we found was that they didn't really know what project-based learning so much was. So when you ask them to describe project-based learning, there was some stumbling and a really wide variety across the staff about what they thought that was or what it should look like. So Natalie used the word iterative, and I think that's really a perfect word for what we do in these research practice partnerships. So we really kind of collaborate with these school teams to figure out what best fits their needs, how we can apply research in practice, what evidence-based research might be something that they're invested in or willing to do. So together with the school leadership, we developed sort of like a strategic plan around this model of instruction that included PD, some coaching for teachers. The teachers were able to do a site visit recently to go see project-based learning in action at another site. And then we've also developed some tools and resources. So you can see in the corner of the screen over here, we now have like a drive folder at the school with all of the resources that the teachers might need for planning or choosing to do a community partnership or a launch event or something like that. So what we have seen happen last year, we're hoping to see even more of an improvement this year, is that the core classroom implementation of project-based learning went up from 29% the previous year to 83%.
And next we've got Scarecrow Jake Stice.
Hi, I'm the Scarecrow. What don't I have? Brain? Is that true? I'll do my best. So I work at a K through 8 elementary school. Our shared problem is to help the school integrate their new writing curriculum well, so that teachers are following the curriculum, but when needed, adapting the curriculum to have best practices of writing instruction to meet their students' needs, which with writing is really important because there isn't just one size fits all like approach to teaching writing. Doesn't really work. If you've ever been in a classroom with kids writing in first, kindergarten, third grade, it's all over the place. So this school needed both like an observational and like coaching framework to make sure that their writing instruction was implemented well, and that this observational coaching framework was tied to evidence-based principles and like what is good writing instruction. So my job is to work with the school to identify what is the current state of writing instruction, identify what teacher needs are, and to help them coach and support their teachers into teaching writing better. Just as students, there's one approach to teach students writing, there's one approach to teaching writing. So like our next step is to develop for the school some instructional resources to build teachers' writing pedagogy in a way that addresses what is most important to the school overall, but also addresses where different teachers are in their process of like internalizing becoming an effective writing teacher. In short, some teachers need to follow the curriculum with like more fidelity. Some teachers are really ready to adapt it and make writing tasks more authentic and culturally responsive. Can someone skip? Next slide. Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Nice. So I did it all.
Yep.
Oh, all right, cool. Nailed it.
All right, next up we have our Ryan Taylor.
So my school, when I first got there, told me they wanted me to collect data for all the parts of their CSIP, their Comprehensive School Improvement Plan. And I used some courage to try something new with some agile methodology, and we really narrowed our focus down to dual language model implementation because it was a language immersion school, so very important for them. And we determined what the minimal viable practice would be, and that was teacher support. Like, let's help what do the teachers need to implement this model better, because the writers of the model did a walkthrough evaluation, and did not report good news. So we were like, we need to do something about this. And so we made 3 universal goals that were directly related to the dual language model. There are many parts and factors to the model, but we focused on these 3 as like the easiest wins. Like, what could we do right now? Because at this point, we were already in second semester. So 100% of teachers will facilitate a minimum of 1 paired activity, which means like with their bilingual partner. 100% of teachers will facilitate a minimum of one 15-minute journal entry per language per week. So that would be in English and then another one in the target language. And then teachers from across the site will speak in their target language, which is either Spanish, French, or Mandarin, during informal moments. So that would be like if they took the class to the restroom break, they'd be speaking in their target language, picking them up from recess, all those types of moments. And so we created a building leadership team, data team. We did walkthroughs in the classroom with like a Google sheet, and we checked for the journals and the paired activities. And then we also would, when we walked around the hallway, listen for moments of the target language being spoken and wrote those down on a shared spreadsheet. And then we would share that data out weekly to the teachers to see how the progress was done. And yes, the goals were very high, 100%, I know. But we did meet one, right? You see, met 100%, we did it, okay? But there was also significant increase on the other 2 goals. Our baseline was 45%, and we increased it to 78% for the paired activities. And then our baseline was 45% for the journal entries, writing in the languages, and that went up to 70%. So, success. Next steps for this year is kind of taking that same model and using it for PBIS implementation.
And Don Freeman.
Good morning. My cycle of inquiry looked at the undergraduate pathways, special education, TESOL, and early childhood. And the problem of practice involved looking at those in terms of the learning science content that we were not seeing aligned consistently to the MEES indicators. And that prompted the wondering of, are these skills not fully developed in our undergraduate candidates? So the approach year one was to work with clinical educators, providing professional development on the foundational aspects of learning by scientific design. And that resulted in a slight increase after 2 45-minute sessions that increased by 3%. So not bad after 2 45 minutes. The next part was a literature review and literature synthesis, and that involved looking at the literature surrounding like cognitive apprenticeship, the type of models that exist in these type of pathways, and then the results of a syllabi analysis, and that resulted in the following findings: that in our SPED pathway for the finish line undergraduate, 8% of the syllabi indicated clear evidence of being aligned to LBSD and MEES. For TESOL, 7%, same with early childhood pathway. And you can see that this kind of evidence, when applied, it speaks to the type of curriculum alignment that may be needed further and things that are occurring like during CAP or Phase 4. Thank you.
Okay, I have 5 seconds. It took on average 101 days to gain access to schools. Okay, we're good. I'm a lot earlier in my project, but I'm at 3 different locations, and I know that the graphic is upsetting, but it's a journey, and I want to be fully transparent with you. You know, I've got no magic up my sleeves. And on average, it took 101 days to gain access to a school and have a clear direction, data collection set up with them that they were comfortable with and that I was comfortable with my project around social emotional learning. All sorts of emails and micro interactions along the way, but that's a thing to note going forward and partnering with schools. So, thanks.
So thank you. We will have the Yellow Brick Road of Translational Research story after 1.